Hey guys, I thought I'd knock out one more video before I turn in for the night. So this knife I haven't carried in a while, but I feel confidently on talking about this one. I've owned at least one other version of this knife. I've always loved it. The last one I had before this, I gave to a buddy right before I went over to Afghanistan. And the only reason I was willing to let go of the other one was it had some things that I wasn't a big fan of. Nothing to the build quality or anything like that, but I don't know if I've ever mentioned it in any of my other videos, but I'm not a big fan of a combo edge. I'm not usually a big fan of serrations. Some knives I'm okay with. The only reason is because when I carry a knife, it's usually for EDC purposes, and like I'm usually never cutting through rope or string or anything like that. And especially if I'm doing paracord work, I'd rather work with a fine edge and not have it snag and rip shit up. I'd just rather have a clean slicing knife, so I usually go with a fine edge on a blade. And if you noticed on my videos, I'm pretty sure it gets annoying after a while, but the reason I do a lot of ums and uhs and kind of thinking for a second is because my videos are unscripted. My talking points are all just off my mind, just things I know about the knife, and that's why I usually like to carry my knives for at least a week and a half before I sit down and start umming and uhing. Because if I try and sit down and it's not a knife I'm not too familiar with, or if I haven't carried it in a while, then it's harder for me to talk about. But like I said, this one I've carried often enough to know that I love it. I can speak freely of it without um, talking points. So anyway, long story short, this is one of my absolute all-time favorite tactical knives. A self-defense knife. This thing's like a pocket machete at an insanely affordable price. So this is your United Cutlery Willumsen collaboration. This is the Blondie. We got a G10, like a really thick, really aggressive G10 on this side. Mine on this one and the previous one I've owned didn't. The G10 didn't wear in too well, but I really like it. The aggressiveness is really nice. Especially if you're doing like hardcore heavy duty tasks with it, it really holds in the hand well. It does have really sharp edges milled into the G10, but it hasn't tore up my hand, especially in heavy use. But the reason I love this knife is the hardcore quality you get for the price you pay. I got this thing on Amazon for less than 30 bucks for like a 4 1/4 blade. And that's insane, especially for how thick this fucker is. Um, I want to say this one is a 440C. It doesn't tell me, but I want to say it's a 440C because it's pretty close to 8CR blade wise. So the edge retention isn't the best, but it's better than a 440A. I might be getting that mixed up. 440A might be better than 440C, but I'm not really sure off the top of my fucking head. But yeah, so you get this really meaty back spacer on there. You get this really thick G10, no liner. You get this really heavy duty stainless side and this monstrous frame lock on there, and this knife is just hardcore. Like, if you see how thick the blade is compared to how thick the knife is overall, this thing is insanely overbuilt. And that's one of the things I love about it. For the size and weight, it's kind of like my Beretta 92. I just love this knife enough that I just don't care. I will put it in my pocket every day, all day. Not an issue. So just like the last video, hopefully I love the cryo as much as I love this guy, especially for the weight. The one thing I can complain about is it doesn't have a lanyard hole. Because it is a pretty deep pocket carry, and but the G10 makes it pretty easy for pocket deployment. Like I said, it's really aggressive, really easy to hold on to. The action isn't the best, but I haven't really broken this one in yet, so it hasn't really been carried. I've seen a couple people do a video on this knife, but not a whole lot. And from what I have seen, some people do not like this urban camo, as they call it. I do. I think it's cool. I fucking love it. I specifically wanted this one in the urban camo. And if you look, the one thing, again, for the price point that I can't believe is the pattern follows through from the blade to the handle almost seamlessly, which is insane. I was like, that's so cool. So the fit and finish on this guy is pretty awesome for the price point. Just like anything else in the $30 range, the fit and finish isn't going to be perfect. Like this edge where the lock bar is pretty sharp. You get a really plain Jane pocket clip on there, but again, for the price point, I mean, everything else you get in the G10, the backspacer, the jimping's really nice for how big it is. It's not, you're not going to be slipping off of there. The G10 is really nice, especially for wearing gloves. Like, I took this guy out on my last hunting trip, and especially in the work gloves, it was pretty amazing. It was just a dream out in the field. But to that, the one thing I do have to complain about is, if you see, there's a little bit of speckling around here, a couple dark spots here. So being out in a damp environment, if it's like a raining season, if it's humid environment, you do have to watch for rust, because this guy is starting to get a little bit of surface rust on it, which made me kind of sad because I really love this knife, but it's not enough to like really notice unless you're like holding it up to your face and checking things out. So yeah, so we got 3 screws holding in the back spacer. The stop bar, again, I love for how overbuilt this knife is. You still get a same hardcore blade stop. That thing is fucking huge. So yeah, all the way around, everything is scaled up on this guy, and I love it. And it fits in my hand well. It's got a little bit of a finger choil here. I wouldn't trust it because there's not much of a ramp, so it'd be really easy to slip up on this blade. I just freshly sharpened this guy, so it's not nuts, but it's a lot sharper than when it came from out of box. This guy was pretty dull, but a little bit of touch up, it was just fine. When I do carry this guy, it's when I do a dual carry. So this goes in the back pocket, and this knife, when I sharpen it, I try not to use it. I sharpen it and it goes in the pocket, and I try not to touch it, because if I carry a knife for defensive purposes, I want the blade to be untouched. I want it to still be razor sharp. And so if I do carry a knife for defensive purposes, I try to carry 2. I try to carry an EDC knife and the defensive knife. And this one, I love. Again, the grip on it is insane, so you know you will not lose this in the hand. The G10 is nice. If you don't know about G10, you can get this stuff wet, muddy, oily, and it still holds its grippiness under any media. So this is like the Glock version of a knife. It'll work in any condition. And that's another thing I love about it. is the durability. Again, for the price for $30. So the last one I had on this was the all black blade with a combo edge. And the reason I didn't like that one was the combo edge. And the reason I didn't get the knife I wanted was back then I got the Bud K surprise box to see if I got anything cool or if they just send you shit. And I got one of these Willumsen knives in it, and I instantly fell in love with the fucker. Like I said, that first one I carried forever, even though I didn't really like or it wasn't the specific one I wanted. This was the one I wanted. So when I got this one, I absolutely fell in love with this knife. It was in my pocket for like 2 months. I just could not put this guy down, and I was just always playing with it, always. So the reason the action is kind of terrible was user error. I don't think you call it juggling, but flipping. I was playing with this knife and flipping it in my hands and throwing it in the air and catching it, and you know, like I recently started saying, get out of your comfort zone, live a little, experience some things. So I started learning to flip my folding knives, toss them around, catching them, throwing them in the air, and playing with them with a sharp edge. Not a trainer. Maybe I'll share a couple videos. I'm not the best. I'm getting a little more fluent at it, a little more fluid. But yeah, and long story short, I dropped this guy from like 4 feet in the air. It landed at an angle, and I bent the pivot in here. So I have to keep the thing pretty torqued down to keep the blade centered. And so I can't fault the knife company because the blade centering was perfect out of box. The reason the blade center is knocked out is human error. Just me being a dumbass. But again, with the $30 knife, you can do whatever the hell you want with it, right? It's your knife. It's $30. You can go out and stab trees for all I fucking care. You can try and hack down a tree with it, right? It's your knife. Do what you want with it. What I chose to do was something stupid, and I hurt the knife, not myself. Go figure, right? But the thing is still a tank, and it's still a hardcore. Even though I bent the pivot, this thing still takes all the tasks like a champ. There is no wiggle side to side, front to back, even out of pocket or out of box. It was insanely perfect. The lockup's a little under 50%, which I like in a frame lock. That gives it a lot of room, a lot of lifespan still, and you still got enough contact where you have a pretty hardcore lock. Which again, usually for the most part, I'm not worried about anyway. I'm not splitting wood with my knives. I'm not banging on the back end of it. So I usually trust most knives to the lockup because I'm usually not doing anything too far out of the norm with my knife. If I'm doing anything that's abusive to a knife, it's jabbing it into things and using this thing as a pry bar. So with what I did, I don't know if this would be the best for a pry bar. It'll probably work. It'll probably bend the stop pin, but you won't be able to destroy it. You won't be able to snap it. And that's where the hardcore comes into play. And again, like the thickness of it. And this wasn't the EDC knife I was saying. That one's still coming up later. This one I was just off the side of my mind. I decided to go ahead and just throw this video together really quick. And that's all I can say right now because we're about to reach the 15-minute point and YouTube doesn't like me going past that. So, again, enjoy your weekend. Stay safe. But get out of your comfort zone. Live life. Experience some things. You guys take it easy. Enjoy the day.